Make it sexy.
That's that'll be the promo.
Yes. So yeah, we're not going live or anything today. It's kind of embarrassing, but I don't have Photoshop until Friday. Pensacon fucking kicked me in the dick financially, so
Oh, I bet, man. I bet it's fucking ridiculous.
yeah, and I didn't have to spend money to go. It's everything else, being out all weekend. I didn't eat a meal at home. I fucking had to buy all those prizes for trivia. It ended up being expensive no matter how hard I
Uh,
tried for it not to be. Couple cocktails a day, dude. I mean, it all adds up.
I bet.
Well,
Because yeah, all that shit gets so expensive.
it does. And if I were the kind of person that were like, buying photo ops and all, I don't understand how people can spend that kind of money to go to a convention and then wait in line to shake a person's hand, spend $50 on an autograph and a headshot so they can post it on social media and be like, I met William Shatner.
Yeah, I don't know. That stuff doesn't do anything for me. Like, and maybe because like you literally met the creators of X-Men, like that's an actual meeting. And I've met rappers and all these people like I actually met, not like paid money,
Yes,
but we're in
correct.
the same room and
Yeah.
had conversations.
And dude, it wasn't a starstruck kind of thing. It was an admiration kind of thing. Like I really
Hmm.
respect their work on that series, and was even more impressed by how fucking nice they were. But I think it's because they're Canadian.
They have to be. It's part of their law.
Yeah, it's funny, man.
Actually, I have met some asshole Canadians.
Did you tell them they're in the wrong fucking country?
I'm just like, what the hell? Go back up north.
Come on down. We got plenty of room for more assholes.
I'm like, you guys are no, keep them up there. Trump's Trump's building the wrong wall. I want one
Yeah.
up north.
All right. We'll go ahead and kick this thing off in three, two. Hey, what's going on, everybody? It's been a little while, but welcome back. I'm Jeremy, and people are terrible. And joining me straight out the joint, we got Caleb Miles over here. What's up,
Do you
Caleb?
do you like my prison colors?
You look good, man. You look like a
It
mugshot, a live action mugshot.
it is.
How,
Maybe it is. Maybe I'm actually in prison right now.
how you been, man?
Good man, just working, living the dream.
It's been a
How
while
was
since we talked.
Pensacon?
It was good. Yeah, so we had to go on a little hiatus just to kind of clear out some space because yeah, I did Pensacola Pensacon last week. It is the local convention. I think we had 38,000 people through the door this weekend, so it's nothing to spit at or nothing to sneeze at. And it's great, man. I host the film festival I have for the past 5 years, and this was by far the biggest turnout. And I think the reason why, I might have mentioned it to you before, but I think the reason why is because in the past we did the film festival all as one block, so you would have to spend like 4 hours out of your Saturday to come and watch all of these films. Well, now you can go watch the science fiction films for 45 minutes or the horror films for 45 minutes. So whatever your specific genre is, you don't have to dedicate the whole entire weekend to it. So man, we packed it out every single time, and the horror was by far the biggest of all of the screenings.
That's awesome, man.
Yeah, it was
One of
cool.
these days, I'm gonna try to join you down there.
Oh man, I'd love it. We definitely would love to put you up and come and hang out. And honestly, I could get you in as a media badge, or you know what I mean. Me and you could go in as media and go and
Yeah,
talk to the people and stuff. My highlight for those of you guys that follow me on social media, I was able to reach out to Julia and Erik Lewald as well as Larry Houston. They're the creators of X-Men the animated series, because they had gotten this really good picture right after the panel that we did, but I didn't even think to get one on my phone, so I had to direct message both of them on Facebook, and I didn't think I was going to hear back from them. But yesterday they ended up shooting me over the pictures, so I uploaded those. But that was so fucking cool being able to talk to them about the inception of that show.
that's the thing I'm most jealous of right there. Like that's, in my opinion, might be pound for pound the best American cartoon of all time.
So if you're putting it up against Batman the animated series, you think it edges it out a little bit?
Not even a little bit, blows it out of the water.
Really? See, I have a tough time committing to one or the other because I love them both. But when you say pound for pound, I think X-Men did a really good job of being more serialized. It told like bigger arc stories instead of just being a kind of episode to episode thing. which is commendable. I really think that fucking X-Men series is responsible for superhero movies being as viable as they are. I think that was the proof.
100%. That was a cultural phenomenon when that came out.
I didn't have a chance. I wanted to ask him because, dude, what's his name? I know Jim Lee, but I can't think of who wrote it. Chris Claremont. So Chris Claremont and Jim Lee released that reissue or relaunch of X-Men the exact same year that the animated series started, and I wanted to know if they were in conjunction with each other, if both of them were rolled out together cohesively, you know?
They had to have been something because it was like the same team and everything, you know? Like it was like that to me is still who I think of when I think of X-Men, is that team.
You ever watched Nostalgia Critic?
I've seen like clips.
Okay. Yeah. Matter of fact, I think it was Saturday. No, it was Friday. He released an interview with Erik and Julia Leewald. So this week's episode of Nostalgia Critic is the exact same. I mean, I'm not sure it's the same, but the same story I was catching the week before. So I thought that was pretty cool.
That sounds awesome, man.
But that's not it. I mean, that's kind of what I was up to. But I know you did a collaboration with somebody the other day. What's the rundown?
Yeah, I did a collaboration with Adam Burke and Adam Daly on. Oh, sorry, can never remember YouTubers' names. Adam Daly was whose show I was on, and I went on there, and it was a love it or hate it segment where we talked about Avengers Infinity War. I had to give 5 reasons I dislike Avengers Infinity War, which was pretty easy for me.
Yeah, I bet it was.
You know, yeah. So, but it was a great time, great dude. I had a blast being on the show. I definitely told him I want to come back on a movie I love sometime, so I don't just sound super negative all the time.
Yeah.
But yeah, it was very good. So definitely go check it out.
Let me try to guess what the 5 things you didn't like about Infinity War. Let's see. Representation. That was the big one. Diversity. No.
And purple face.
3 more. Yeah.
Was my number 1.
So no, for real. Give me the. Never mind. You guys go watch it. I'm gonna post a link in the description. I'm not gonna make Caleb spill all the beans right here. It bothers me though, man. I'm not gonna lie. They get the juice, and I get stuck with your ass talking about I don't know, whatever we talk
about grandma's floating away on ice.
Yeah. Oh yeah. We do got some stuff we're going to talk about today. As always, we're going to kick this thing off with some weird news, and Caleb and I have each brought our own topic. Florida man was a little lame this week. I googled it trying to find some good headlines, and it was like a bunch of like greatest hits. Like I found a couple of lists of previous Florida man headlines. So you fucking weirdos need to step it up. Do what you do best, Florida. Give us something to talk about.
Yeah, it's weird. There's a low Florida. Oh, hold on. There's another one that just popped up.
Oh,
Florida
good.
Man.
Good. Put a pin in that shit. We'll come back to it.
Perfect.
Good. All right. Well, so yeah, we're gonna kick this off with what are you watching? No, I'm just kidding. That's the other show, which we will be back to doing that one next week. I was fucking wiped out, and Caleb was making some money, which, you know, priorities. You gotta, as much as we get paid to do the YouTube thing, just every once in a while, a little
as much as we get our $0 a month.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, our Patreon is going off, by the way. So head over and check out Be Terrible on Patreon. Just contribute to that big old, like, Scrooge McDuck pile of fucking money that we got over there in the reserve. Just kidding. It's fine. We appreciate you guys just for stopping by, to be honest with you. It means a lot that you take a little bit of time out of your week to come and talk with us. We're not going Joe Rogan, Alex Jones 4-hour podcast today, but we're going to dive into some shit. We'll get to that. So we're going to go ahead and start this thing off with some weird news, as long as I can pull open the software. Okay, here we go. First story in the weird news, and then I'm going to pass it off to you, Caleb. You got your notes in front of you?
Which one?
Do you have your notes in front of you? Do you have the document in front of you? Okay, great. So I'm going to start it off, and then I'll pass it over to you, and we'll just kind of go back and forth. The one I want to start with is fabulously fat rat rescued after getting stuck in manhole cover. No video, just some pictures of it. Apparently it was over in Germany. It's real adorable rats like stuck in one of the holes of like a sewage, the things that Ninja Turtles come out of, the sewage lids.
Manholes?
Manhole,
The sewage lids?
Wait, a manhole. Yeah, manhole. That's the word. That's the one. We'll go with that. I was like, that's a pothole. I'm a fucking pothole. So anyways, this thing, I guess, was capturing the sympathy of people that were walking by, like, oh, look at that little rat. And they ended up calling the fire department, who brought out top men, several men, to come out and let this thing go. It's a cute story, but I mean, what do you think, man? What do you think about using resources for saving rats?
That was my thing. This was such a waste of time. I could have got that thing out. Just give me a knife in 2 minutes. Cut that fucker in half and pull it in out. The thing is, like, we kill rats nonstop. There's mouse traps, all this. Why are we saving this fucker? Cut its head off, pull it out, push it back down. You're good.
It is weird, right? Like, we pay exterminators, as society, we pay good money to get rid of rats, but for some reason, I think it's like it had to be like a social media flex, right? Like it was somebody wanting to get some attention on the German fire department, or
I don't get what it is. I don't understand half of this shit that gets popular. Like, people are like, oh, I actually searched on Twitter, and people are like, this is so cute and charming. I'm like, yeah, go put that fat rat in your house and see how cute and charming it is.
Well, and the fucked up thing is, and I had to read like 6 paragraphs in, there was a nursery burning to the ground 2 blocks over, and for some reason, all of the fucking fire department is pulling this rat out of a fucking, what do we decide it is? A manhole. Just kidding about that, but you know what I mean? Like, how many fire departments does it take to pull a stupid rat out of a fucking manhole? That said, it was a cute rat, right? Like, it was aesthetically a good looking rat.
It was a handsome rat. That was some Master Splinter rat level cuteness.
Yes,
like,
it was.
He was fat as shit. and the general rule is everything is cuter when it's fatter. Babies, fatter, cuter.
This is true. What's the name of that model we talked about? Tess
Holiday?
Very cute.
Very cute.
Like,
rubbed one out this morning.
Oh, fucking cute. Yeah. I don't know. It's weird. It's like we have this thing, and I think that there's a science to it. I don't think I'm the first person to bring this up, but if a mammal has no hair on its tail, people are fucking repulsed by it. Rats, possums, mice, even to an extent, yet everybody loves a squirrel.
I don't know. Squirrels are little fuckers.
Everybody loves a squirrel but Caleb Miles. Caleb's anti-squirrel.
Have you ever heard my rant on the word squirrel? How
No.
I think it's the ugliest word in the English language?
Please.
So, there is so not the actual meaning, but the actual sound of the word squirrel is disgusting.
Squirrel.
Like, someone sees a cute little furry creature and they're like, it's a squirrel. Like, that's a fucking weird guttural sound. You know what is a beautiful word, though?
What?
If you take away the meaning, genitalia. That is a beautiful sounding word.
Okay, so squirrel, bad. Genitalia, good.
Good. Yeah,
right.
Genitalia sounds like something out of, like, Lord of the Rings. Princess, like, genitalia. It's a pretty word.
Yeah, I don't know about that one, man. I don't know about that one. There are some weird words, though. To tell you the truth, I was having almost an existential crisis the other day. This is very pertinent to this rat story, guys. I was in the shower the other day, and I was thinking about my name, Jeremy. I pronounce it Jeremy. A lot of people pronounce it Jeremy. Is it 2 syllables or is it 3? I guess that's debatable. In my mind, it's J, the word air, and then the word me. But some people break it up into 3 syllables. Jeremy. I am Jeremy. My name
I
and
don't
my
hear a difference in what the hell you're talking about.
Okay, so Jeremy. That sounds the same to you?
Yes.
All right.
Jeremy
and
Jeremy. That sounds like someone just running it together.
Yeah, I think it's just for me, it's like easier to throw away the extra syllable. But then I started thinking, like, my name is my identity. I am Jeremy. What the fuck does that even mean? I'm not the only Jeremy. There are millions of Jeremys out there, but their identity is also Jeremy. And I just started like deconstructing, like, what the fuck is a word? What even is a...
How high were you when this happened?
I was super fucking baked, man.
This is like, I got high, I got in the shower, and it just was like, what is a word?
Yeah, and that's what it was. And I got out of the shower and I told Victoria, I was like, I just had this weird... I wasn't high. I think that was the problem. My mind fucking runs wild when I don't get high. So I'm like, I don't know. It was stupid, but like the word green, I don't remember. There was some movie. No, it was Road. Was it fucking Black Sheep or Tommy Boy?
Road. Yeah, Black Sheep.
So funny, but I think they were super bait. I think they were on like nitrous or some shit. But anyways, I've digressed. What you want to talk about? We'll move on from the rat story.
So I want to talk about my favorite story. It was the one I just texted you before we went on. Grandma floats away on ice throne during photo shoot. This is so fucking hilarious.
It is amazing.
So this comes from UPI.com. I'm just gonna read straight from it. A Texas grandma who sat on a throne-shaped piece of ice in Iceland ended up needing to be rescued when it floated away with her on top. Judith Strang said she was traveling in Iceland with her son, Rod Strang, when they spotted some people taking photos on the iceberg throne at Diamond Beach. It was shaped like an easy place to sit. You can tell by looking at the shape of it. And I thought, well, it looks fun, Judith said. When I got on it, it started to totter and a wave was coming in. A very large wave came in and made the throne kind of rock. I could tell that I was slipping off. Strang said that she thought the piece of ice was sturdy because other tourists had just been climbing on it. The ice chunk floated away with Strang still on top, but the woman was soon rescued by Randy LeCompte, a Florida man.
Oh, Florida man in the house. Yeah,
who was boating nearby. I just think this is amazing that this little old lady climbs up on an iceberg and it just fucking takes her out to the sea.
It is fucked up because there's no video of it, but we've got this before picture where she's just kind of comfortably sitting on this ice throne, and then the next one, she's just like a fucking speck off in the distance being carried out by the tides. And yeah, I gotta say, Judith, if everybody else is jumping off a bridge, are you gonna do it? You fucking
Apparently
idiot.
She would.
No shit. Who wrote the article? Is her name Sue Necessary?
Is that her name?
Yeah, man. I don't know if that's a pen name or what, but that is a good name.
I hope it's her real name.
I'm on East Texas Matters, the very reputable site East Texas Matters. But yeah, that is so funny. And it's weird because, yeah, like you said, they were in Iceland. So we've got a Texas woman in Iceland who gets saved by a Florida man who's just out there boating. That is fucking wild.
This is so... I just wish there was video of this.
Man.
Oh, God, this would be the best video ever. Then, like, someone put, like, Somewhere Beyond the Sea, like, play. This is something you excuse, like, excuse, like, a child for doing, you know?
Yeah.
And then yell at their parents for allowing their kids to do it. But this old lady... just like, I'm gonna go sit on it. And the before and after picture is amazing with her all smiling and then her just way out there, not in the distance.
Like fucking White Walker out there floating around on ice. Jesus Christ.
This is the most ridiculous thing I've ever heard. And I don't know why. Every time I read the article, I can't even make it through the article without cracking up. I think it's hilarious.
I mean, it's good she's okay, but yeah, that is definitely a ridiculous thing to do. Guys, if you're listening to this, don't do that. I mean, this water is obviously cold enough that if you went in, you're gonna feel it. You're probably gonna die of hypothermia within minutes.
Yeah, don't go sit on an iceberg. It's just not smart.
It's like chasing waterfalls. Just don't do it.
That was so lame that I kind of dig it.
Thank you. I worked on that for a little bit. So let's go ahead and move on to one that's very, very similarly related. And in an alternate timeline, we could have actually seen this old woman crash over a fucking seawall
Now
on
that
one
would
of
be a
these things
great
of
video.
ice. So yeah, there's this video that was released, and it's wild looking. It's a Lake Erie sends a massive 40-foot ice tsunami crashing ashore. When I heard that headline, I was like, oh my God, a 40-foot ice wave. They were talking about like 40 foot in length, and that's not how you measure a fucking wave. The face of this wave was like maybe 5 foot. It was a nice swell. If it weren't ice, you might be able to surf. You might be able to snow ski it. I don't fucking know, but it's a crazy video. I've never seen anything like it. To be honest, I didn't even know that Lake Erie had waves. Like, that was a strange concept to me. Did you see the video?
Yeah, I was actually at the beginning. Because I was like you, 40 foot, of ice. I thought the same thing, 40 feet high. It's still a cool video. At first, I was like, okay, it's just a little bit of ice. But then as it goes, it does start to add up.
Uh-huh.
The guy recording the video cracked me up, though. Did you listen to this with audio on?
No. No. What happened?
Oh, he's like, now this guy, by the way he's acting, is probably a Florida man. He's like, I got it. Woo, I can't believe I got it. And he's like, says it for like all 5 minutes of the video is him screaming at the top of his lungs.
It would have been ideal if he got swept away not hurt. Again, we don't want to encourage that people get hurt, but to just watch him get fucking rolled on by this gigantic wave of ice.
If Granny came over on the piece of ice and hit him,
yes.
Great video.
Come riding in like a rodeo clown on the back of one of these waves. It is crazy looking, though, and to think, that lake is so massive in the first place, and to think that the water had the strength to push that ice up and over that seawall, that's some pretty powerful stuff.
And then as it starts to build up, it gets higher, and it continues to just stack on top, which is pretty impressive.
It is, man. It is. It's a strange phenomenon. I've never seen an ice wave before. However, I did see a picture of Niagara Falls just a matter of a couple weeks ago. We've been having some record low temperatures. It's finally starting to warm up here in Florida. But yeah, there was a picture of Niagara Falls completely fucking frozen in time. Like, the water is still coming off the side and everything, but it is all just completely seized up. And I understand the way that water can be, solids and liquids and gases and stuff, but I cannot understand how water with that much momentum is able to freeze in motion.
Yeah, I'm sure there's science behind it, of course, you know what I mean? But it to me, I do the same thing as you. Logically, it just seems impossible with something moving that fast to freeze that quickly and just stop. But I guess it does make sense, but it's pretty amazing.
That is a fucking huge pile of ice. Like you said, it just keeps on going. Well, yeah. You ever seen, you're in Colorado. You've seen some cold stuff. You see lakes freeze over and all that?
Oh, yeah, there's a lake right by my house that freezes over all the time. In fact, after this podcast, I got to go out and shovel the snow off my driveway. So.
Oh, yeah. So you go out there and you salt it?
No, I just shovel it. And then the sun comes out. The thing that's good about Colorado is, yes, it snows, but then the sun comes out the next day and melts half of it.
So, you ever been snowed in where you had to miss work because of it?
Oh, nothing closes in Colorado for snow.
Right. Yeah, I was going to say, it kind of makes sense. If you shut something down every time it snows outside, you probably wouldn't have many businesses open.
The first time I moved out here and it snowed, I was like, oh man, work must be closed. Like, it snowed a decent snow. And then I called and they're like, what the fuck are you talking about? No, we're not closed. Like, for this little snow. I was like, oh.
Yeah. Well, all right. That's about all I can milk out of that story. What else you want to talk about?
The dead humpback whale mysteriously appears in the Amazon jungle. This is the weirdest shit I've ever seen. So this you actually brought to my attention from HuffPost.
I did something.
This opening line bothers me so much. Researchers are having a whale of a time trying to figure out how a humpback whale wound up in the Amazon rainforest. So this thing they say is 26 to 36 feet long that is literally in the middle of a rainforest. Like, there's no reason, they have no idea how this ended up here. It's very unusual, obviously. They're rarely that far north, and it's like pretty far inland. Did you see the picture?
Yeah, I'm looking at it right now, and it looks huge, dude. I mean, this isn't the kind of you wouldn't think like the tide coming in would even have enough power to push it up in this specific place. It's like up in some brush and the trees and shit, and they didn't find any wounds on it.
No, it like there must have been tide. That's the only thing I can think of. But they're saying, of course, they're just going to leave it there, to rot,
Is that
essentially.
right?
Yeah, they said, that there's no plan on moving it, and it makes sense. Let the fucker rot. It's fine. It's in the middle of the
Uh,
rainforest.
yeah, I mean that's what dead stuff does. But God, dude, those carcasses are so big. You remember Reno 911, the movie where I don't know if you saw it, but they fucking
Yeah,
detonate a bomb to try to get rid of it, and it just
I
blows
forgot
all
about
over the
that.
place. I've heard of them doing it before. In fact, I think there's real video of people trying to just basically break it down quicker by exploding it, and it just sends animal carcass everywhere. What a horrible idea for how to do that. What I thought was funny is the institute replied to basically the biologists were saying it was 26 feet long. However, local officials say it was closer to 36 feet long. As with any good fish story, somebody's exaggerating like a motherfucker. I'm going to say that it was exactly 26 feet long, like the biologist said. But then underneath it, they're like, we want to clarify that it's not as big as it looks in the picture. And it's like, yeah, that's forced perspective. Obviously, the thing is in front of the people behind it. But dude, it is no small animal for sure.
No, that thing's massive. Apparently, it's a calf too. It's not a fully grown one, but like it's just weird. I mean, it's like aliens picked this thing up and dropped it off like in the middle of nowhere. That's what it looks like.
It really is. And like you said, as far as them not really being native to that area. And speaking of which, the weirdest thing happened last week, dude. And like I'm very local here in Florida. I've been here all my life. So actually, we're gonna go ahead and kick over to what the Florida is going on because there was a couple of fishermen out on Navarre Beach last week, just doing their thing. People fish out there all the time, and it's not uncommon to pull in sharks. What is uncommon is to pull in 10-foot great white sharks, 700-pound fish in the Gulf of Mexico. They reeled it in. They said it took over an hour, which goddamn, whoever made that rod and reel, those things are going to be selling off the shelves now because holy crap, they fought this great white shark onto land. They tagged it, they named it, and they released it. And when I say release it, you can't just reel in a shark and then just kind of put it back in the water because for those of you guys that know way more about marine biology than I do, sharks have to stay in perpetual motion because they don't breathe with lungs in the same way that people do. The way that they acquire their oxygen is from passing through the water. The water goes into their mouths and they use their gills as a filtration system to pull the oxygen out of it. So basically you have to jumpstart the animal. You get it back into the water and you push it almost like you're about to, get to turn the wheel over to get it started. And so there's 4 or 5 guys out there just trying to shove this great white shark back into the water, and its sonar's all fucked up. Obviously, it wouldn't even been in the shallow waters in the Gulf like that if it were. It doesn't, because there's not a lot of great whites out there. But anyways, these people, they like get in the water with it. They're fucking chest deep in the water, pushing this great white back out into the sea. And it just kind of, I had a realization that I've never had before. And it's that, like, they're just fish. They're not, like, aggressive killing machines. They're just big-ass fish. And it had no interest in attacking those people at all.
Yeah, I'm curious to see what actual shark attack statistics are because I know they do attack people just like lions and shit do, but I don't really think a big part of it is media that has made them into these jaws. They
Yeah.
made everyone into jaws where they're just trying to attack people, but I think 9 times out of 10, they're probably just going about their business. And when they do attack a person, it's, they see their legs moving around in the water, which still would be terrifying, obviously, and sucks anytime a person gets attacked. But yeah, I would assume they're not. I mean, this is someone who knows nothing about it. I'd assume they're not like super, super aggressive unless in the right scenario.
Yeah, absolutely. I think a lot of times it's misidentification. I don't know specific statistics. I could only guess, but let's just say there are 100 million people that get in the water across the world every year. Again, just fucking completely uneducated guess. And there's about 10 shark attacks a year. So we don't hear about the not shark attacks. We only hear about the shark attacks. And those make news because, like you said, there's kind of a media obsession with it. From what I understand, you are more likely to get struck by lightning. You're actually more likely to die having a vending machine fall on you than you are to get attacked by a shark. There are lots of animals out there that are going to be more likely to attack you. I think you and I have talked a little bit about hippos in the past and the fact that they'll fucking tear people up.
They are mean.
Yes.
So apparently there's about 16 shark attacks per year in the U.S., about 39 to 50 worldwide per year.
More than I thought. So, I mean, that it's a substantial amount. And, as you said, it does happen. I've seen surf competitions where, like, a guy's catching a wave and then all of a sudden this big-ass dorsal fin comes out going straight towards him and fucking nails him. And the dude lived. He fought it off, but it tore his leg up. There's this really famous case of a shark attack here in Pensacola Beach. It was a kid named Jesse Arbogast. It probably happened about 10 years ago. And the kid was eaten by a shark. His dad had to go and fucking pull him out of the shark's mouth. The part of the story,
shit.
Yeah, dude, it was horrible. But the part of the story that people overlooked is that Jesse's dad was out there chumming, which chumming is when you throw fish guts into the water at dusk. So he was there during feeding time, chumming the water with his kid, swimming around out there. He fucked up royally, you know what I mean? So
yeah, that's horrible. That sounds like human error.
It really is. So a lot of those shark attacks every year happen in obviously really shallow water because certain species of sharks, like bull sharks, they feed on smaller fish that swim closer to the land. So it's this, it's not a turf war, but it's this conflict of people being in these predators' natural fucking hunting ground. And if the shark just is, normally they call them exploratory bites. It's going to see what this thing is it prey? And if the shark bites you on your fucking femoral artery or bites you in the thigh in the right spot, you're going to bleed out. You're going to just fucking die from it. But it wasn't because the shark was like malicious or something like that. Cool little piece of trivia. The last time there was a great white shark on Navarre Beach was in 1981 when they were filming Jaws 2. It was a robot shark. It was the location, where they filmed Jaws. So it's kind of interesting. This is something that I think the last time they actually caught a shark out there that was a great white was like 1960 something. So this was extremely rare. And I thought just super fascinating. Of course, a lot of my like very animal rights activist friends are like, oh, it's so terrible that they did that to the shark. They didn't know what they were catching. They're out there, they're fishermen. They didn't know. But once they realized what it was, they had marine biologists come out there and tag it, put a GPS on it, name it, and send it back out to sea. So they did it in the most humane way they possibly could. I think the shark's doing well. But it just lets you know if there's one great white out there, they're out there.
Yeah, that's something I keep my fat ass out of the water. Being like a desert kid and a landlocked kid, that's something I just like. I have no desire to do.
Crazy story, man. That was one of my favorites from the week. But I know you got a Florida man story that you kind of just stumbled upon.
Yeah. So, Florida man who allegedly threatened family with Coldplay lyrics ends standoff after SWAT promises him pizza. If that ain't a fucking headline.
Well, hold up. Yeah, elaborate. What was the Coldplay song? How was that a threat?
I don't know. I'm just kind of reading it now. So, Evan McLemore, police say, turned himself in over to SWAT team negotiators in Pensacola, Florida on Tuesday after being promised a slice of pizza.
Get the fuck out of here. Man, I love being a Floridian. This is fantastic. And dude, you can attest, this is not the first Pensacola, Florida man story we have talked about.
No, this was I was talking about this the other day at work. I was telling about the podcast. I was like, we have a Florida man story every week. I was like, you think we would run out of shit, but every week something pops up, even if it's right as it's coming out, you know?
Oh,
So
100%.
a Florida man accused of threatening his family by texting them Coldplay lyrics and warning them of retribution from his quote Nazi prison associates was persuaded by police to end standoff and return for a fresh slice of pizza. Reports say. Evan Charles McLemore, under the belief that SWAT team negotiators were ready to hand him one of America's favorite foods, was taken into custody Tuesday following a 4-hour confrontation at a Pensacola home. Quote, never underestimate the power of pizza with a flavored crust, the Pensacola Police Department wrote on Facebook, while adding officers, quote, cannot comment on the rumors about pineapple being on the pizza, operational security and all
Mean.
that.
Good job,
So,
Fox.
let's see.
Bro, and these are not just like, hey, they're not just deputies out there in their fucking regular uniform. These guys are straight up like military SWAT gear. They've got the
They're
comm
very
helmets on
happy
their
holding
head.
that pizza, though. See that guy in the center?
Fuck
Jesus.
yeah, dude. He needs a job at Hungry Howie's. And hey, look, dude, if I'm having a standoff and pizza is what I'm after, I mean, step it up. Go fancy and get some Domino's. I mean, Domino's is bottom of the barrel shit too, but is there a worse pizza than fucking Hungry Howie's?
What is it a Florida chain?
Maybe.
No, Hungry
I didn't
Howie's.
even think about that. I guess there's not all that many of them. If you don't have them over there, they are, $5 hot and ready. Go in there and pick up a cheese or a pepperoni pizza.
So they're like a Little Caesars type
Yes,
of thing?
yes. They're
Okay.
basically on par with Little Caesars, which is, again, it's like Cece's Pizza or some shit. Just bottom of the barrel.
It's like Big Daddy's Pizza is like the one over here, which is the same thing. It's like garbage pizza for $5.
What's your favorite pizza?
My favorite like pizza chain?
Pizza
type?
chain and then type of pizza.
Chain. So back home, it's another one that you probably never heard of. If we're going chain, Pizza 9 is probably my favorite pizza chain.
Never heard of it.
And then type of pizza is pepperoni, cheese, and anchovy.
Really?
Oh, I love anchovy pizza.
I'm not an anti-anchovy guy at all. I just don't hear too many people say it's their favorite. It's like, I'll fuck with it, but I'm not ordering it on my pizza.
So my brother, and my wife are like the only 3 people I know who love anchovy pizza. So if the 3 of us go out to a pizza joint, we always order pepperoni, cheese, and anchovy every time.
I'm going to ask you a question, man. I want you to be real with me. Is the reason why you like anchovies on your pizza because the Ninja Turtles ate anchovies on their pizza?
No, I actually didn't have them until I was older. I like strong flavors just in general. Like I like strong coffee. I like unsweet tea. I like when I used to drink, it was always like strong alcohol. I love seafood in general. So
then you got to try these nuts, dude. If you like strong flavors that taste like seafood,
is that what they taste like?
These nuts.
Really? Is that where you go with it?
So stupid. So stupid. Okay, so Papa John's, you know Papa John's?
Yeah, I like Papa John's.
Papa John's is probably my favorite chain. It's not the best pizza in the world, and as far as what I get on it, man, I like pepperonis, I like black olives, onions, bell peppers, pepperoni, onion, mushrooms, bell peppers. That's pretty much it. I'm good with that. But then I also like those thin crust, like white sauce pizzas with spinach and feta cheese and chicken on top of them. Yeah, those are a couple of my favorites. I have no problem with pineapple on pizza. Where do you stand on that?
Oh, that's disgusting. I don't like pineapple at all. Anyway.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, no.
Then I can see how.
What do you think of Papa Murphy's?
No, I don't know. I never had one.
Oh, so are you familiar with them though?
No.
Do you have them out there? So
Nope.
It's the weirdest concept. I finally had it after all these years. You take the pizza home. They give it to you all wrapped up, still in dough form. You take it home and bake it in your own oven.
I'm into it.
I kind of like it, but I kind of feel like I'm paying the same price for doing half the fucking work.
It's like you do it. Yeah. Yeah, for sure. So
like it's kind of pricey too.
How much do they charge you for something like that?
I mean, one pizza is probably like $15.
Oh,
you know?
yeah, okay. You're paying fucking full on pizza prices.
Yeah, it's like normal pizza prices. And
Um,
I kind of have a hard time with that.
I'll go to Walmart and we will get the Great Value cheese pizzas. They're pre-made. You just take them home and bake them. But we always keep fresh produce in the house. So like I don't use that frozen shit that they're probably using at any freezer pizza. So they come refrigerated, not frozen. We'll come home and I'll just cut up every single fresh produce item that I want and throw it on it ourselves and bake it. It ends up costing about the same as a cheap fucking shitty Hungry Howie's or pizza or a Little Caesars pizza, but so much better because they do the crust right, you know.
Do you like the super deep dish like Chicago? I'm talking like the ones that are like they're just essentially casserole in bread.
That's Vicky's thing, not me.
No, I like it, but I can only eat it like there's a place out here, Pachi's, and it takes me like 45 minutes to cook one pizza because it's so thick.
Huh.
And it's great, but I can do it like once a year.
It's, to me, pizzas are like New York style. To me, pizzas are like carry them with you, fold them up, fucking just be able to eat it on the go. And yeah, so like Vicky, when she cuts up her toppings, she does them extra thick. I do everything just as my thumb can attest, which is finally better, but I do everything super fine. Like I like everything to be almost diced, like you're about to throw that shit in pico. So like I cover it all. It's got coverage from one end to the other. I got to make sure my cheese is fucking distributed perfect. Me and you, we got a little bit of those OCD ticks. So I've got like very specific ways that I like my everything, you know?
And yeah, pizza, I'm definitely more like thin New York, greasy. That's pizza to me.
Yeah,
like,
yeah.
You know, I don't need no fancy like hipster pizza, like flatbread, wood oven bullshit. I just want a greasy, gross pizza.
I'll fuck with those too, man. We got a place called Tuscan Oven, and they do it just straight over flame, and it's good too. But yeah, there are a lot of different kinds of pizza places out there, and there's this one. It's called the Rodeo Stomp or the Rodeo Stomp, and they sell it at this a very hipster pizza joint here in town called Ozone Pizza, and it's barbecue sauce, filet mignon, fucking roasted. Man, I don't even want to say what's on it, but then it's glazed over the top of the feta and everything with honey. And it is like, it's the jam, dude. It doesn't sound like something that would be great, but it's got that nice, savory, sweet profile to it.
Sweet.
Man.
I back home, they have this place called Dion's. It's a New Mexico chain, and they have this one thing called the Duke City, which Albuquerque's the Duke City. It's green chili, cheddar cheese, chicken, and onions, and it's on a pizza crust. So there's no sauce. The green chili is a sauce. It's not even really pizza, but it's amazing.
Still good.
Yeah, it's amazing.
We got you guys hungry yet? No,
I am. I'm about to go get pizza for lunch.
I know, man. Shit. So the standoff ended. Possible battery reportedly learning that he barricaded himself inside a room at the home. I'm trying to find a address to this guy, but I want to know what the Coldplay. Oh. Light will guide you home and ignite your bones, and I will try to fix you. I don't think that was the context of the original song, but under these circumstances, it's pretty threatening.
Apparently, he had a gun to his head and was saying he wasn't going back to prison. That was the whole thing, you know?
I had one of those like moments of interest. Like I was going through Facebook this morning trying to invite people to like the fan page. And there's like 5 or 6 people that I know from growing up, not people that I'm currently friends with, but people that I've known throughout the years. And some of them have 5 and 6 accounts. And I found the common thread between them. It's like these cats, they get out of jail and either they forgot their password while they were in jail or they want a fresh start. I've got like 4 or 5 friends that, that are just straight up fucking jailbirds, cannot stay out of prison, and each and every one of them has multiple accounts. Have you ever seen that before?
Yeah, I was gonna say that's a total hood thing, man, because like I have so many friends on my Facebook that I'm like, which fucking one am I supposed to text you on? Like, you got 14 of these things, dude. And some of them, like the profile pictures, you can at least tell. You're like, all right, you have one less prison face tattoo in that one, so that's an old one.
Yeah. Yeah, it's fucked up, but I definitely noticed that. Oh, I didn't show you guys a picture of that great white. Let me pull that up real quick. I did want to say there was this huge thread on Facebook of people being like, oh, it's cruelty to animals, blah, blah, blah. Same kind of thing with the fucking rat. I mean, it's very unusual to see a great white in the wild like this, and 100% they need to be protected. These are apex predators that contribute greatly to our ecosystem and stuff like that. That said, come on, guys. Like, these people are fishermen. They accidentally hooked it. They let it go. It wasn't super inhumane. But then there's this other group of people, this other collective that are like, actually, that's a black tip reef shark. It's like, dude, marine biologists called it a great white. I'm looking at pictures of it. It's a fucking great white. What do you know? Shut the fuck up.
Has there ever been like a good sentence that started with actually?
No. Actually, no, never.
I
never
don't
once.
think I always, if at any point in time someone goes, well, actually, I'm like, oh, this person's a total douche.
Jump
like,
off a cliff. Yeah.
Yeah. I'm like, no,
yeah.
well, actually.
Yeah, so anyways, it's clearly a great white, you fucking idiots. Let's go. If you want to talk about species of sharks, watch Hours of Discovery Channel, people. That's where I get my my incredible, vast knowledge about sharks from. Shark Week, baby.
I get mine from Street Sharks.
Oh,
That's right.
Even more reliable, actually.
Very, very accurate.
Look, if Vin Diesel backs it, you fucking know that it is a legitimate product.
Hell yeah.
Wasn't that the guy? That's the ones, right?
I don't know. Did he back it? Are they doing a remake or whatever?
Oh, I gotta show you. No, there's this commercial where Vin Diesel, it's like from back in the 80s or the 90s, where he's showing off these toys. Like, I think they're Street Sharks. Oh yeah, we'll talk. We'll get back to that. But
yeah, well, I'm googling this while you move on to your subject.
Do I have any more? Let's see. What else are we gonna talk about here? Oh, okay. We'll dive into this one for just a second. It looks like Florida man's scoring system was come up by a certain publication, and Tampa Bay has 4 of its top all-time stories. I'm just gonna run through a couple of them real fast because, to be honest, we've fucking talked about a couple of these. Let's see. Fries with that. Man accused of tossing alligator through drive-thru at Wendy's. You remember that one?
Yes, I do remember that one.
So yeah, he rolled up to a Wendy's. He was a 24-year-old man, and he threw a 3.5-foot alligator through the window at the Wendy's drive-thru. Let's see. Florida man bites off girlfriend's thumb. Oh, that's fun. Naked man stood in a fire and chanted gibberish. Mushrooms did it, cops say. Yeah.
That's usually the story right there.
He looks like he was definitely high on mushrooms. He looks like you'd see him at a fucking Widespread Panic concert. This isn't really moving the needle for me. Here we go. Man 20 years old. Cops plead to lewd act with stuffed horse inside Walmart. So he went and found a stuffed horse. He took it over to the bed section. He fucking masturbated with the horse, and then he left it. He was acting suspiciously by constantly looking around, and loss prevention was kind of on him. And then they saw him remove the toy from the shelf, take it to the bedding department. Then when Johnson returned the toy to the shelf, it was contaminated and could not be sold. He was arrested.
What you said this was at a Walmart?
Yeah, of course.
Is that what? I'm just thinking a Florida Walmart must be like fucking Mad Max. That's what I picture. Like a Florida Walmart. That must be some next level shit.
What am I trying to say? The crossover, the Venn diagram of people on Florida Man and people of Walmart is pretty big piece of the pie.
Yeah, there has to be a huge crossover. Walmart's the one place, like, if you ever feel ugly, go into a Walmart.
Oh, yeah.
You'll feel like the sexiest, best dressed person you've ever seen.
Bro, there's what we call it. It's like the newer, fancier models of Walmart that they're putting up in more kind of more upscale areas. They're called like the Walmart Marketplace or something like that. They're
Oh
small,
yeah,
they're
like the
more
hipster ones.
boutique-y. Yeah.
Yeah.
And over in Gulf Breeze proper, which is the next town over, it's just nothing but gorgeous soccer moms and fucking yoga pants. And it's like, this is not what Walmart is supposed to be. You guys are screwing up the
No.
image.
If I go to Walmart, I want there to be at least a little bit of a chance of me getting stabbed. That's half the fun, you know?
Yeah, man, you can't just get stuff for cheap. There needs to be some sort of risk factor involved with it.
We had the one back home. There's an area called the War Zone. So as you can tell, very nice area. But the Walmart in the War Zone, man, that was where I used to go all the time. And it was just always something fucking crazy going on. Like people be fighting, there'd be blood everywhere. It was like always just crazy as shit all the time. But it was the closest place I had to get groceries. So I was like, well, I guess I'm going there. As long as they're not stabbing me, who cares?
He dress up like what was the movie where they're like taping Train to Busan, where you're like taping phone books around your arm and shit to just
like
go plow through everybody. Yeah, man.
Have you ever been to a Walmart on Black Friday?
No, hell no.
Oh man, I went once. I made that mistake. Holy shit, man!
People throwing bows.
Well, another thing that cracks me up, they always have that $5 ban of movies year round.
Yeah.
So that's out. Same movies that were yesterday, same movies that'll be there tomorrow. And people are like fucking just ripping into this thing and grabbing as many. I'm like, literally, you could have got these for 6 months.
Yeah, I've been needing this Nicolas Cage direct-to-video box set.
You're like, yeah, I really need the conspiracy theory director cut on DVD.
Critters 3 is a fucking masterpiece.
Hey, don't knock Critters 3.
Dude,
that's worth throwing some elbows.
You know I won't. We'll get into it on Movies Are Terrible, but Sci-Fi's launching a fucking Critters show.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, man. Okay, was I waiting for you to pull up a Florida man story?
No, we already did it. We're waiting for you to get into your story.
Oh, all right. Fair enough.
Your topic.
Fair enough. That makes sense. So this week, we've got a couple of good ones. Caleb has got a great topic, but I want to kick this off because I'm a pretty regular viewer of the Joe Rogan Experience. I miss me with those MMA episodes. My least favorite part of Joe Rogan is listening to him talk about being physically fucking violent with people. It turns me off. I understand it's super appealing to him, but I don't watch a lot of those shows. But you put fucking Neil deGrasse Tyson on it or other comedians, pretty much anybody else, and I'm very fascinated by him because Joe Rogan is a curious person who really is a great interviewer. I think what he does is facilitate a really good environment for people to come on and just dive deep into whatever it is they're passionate about. Alex Jones was on Joe Rogan Experience not long ago. I think it was about a year ago. Last time we talked about it. Wow. So it's okay. It has been a little bit. And since then there was a kind of a public falling out between the two of them due to some of the statements that Alex Jones made about Sandy Hook and Parkland and basically that, the crisis actor thing and all of this. Well, apparently they wanted to reconcile. Alex Jones wanted to use an opportunity to basically say that he backtracked on several of those things and that he actually didn't believe that Parkland and Sandy Hook were staged, but that he was being exposed to all these conspiracy theories and shit. And, with a general distrust for the government, because we've seen historically that they are willing to do things. Some people take it to the extreme and they think that every conspiracy theory is true. So that's kind of what I want to talk about. We'll jump into that. But first of all, I mean, I know you watched it, man. It was like a 4-hour podcast. What did you think?
I'm like halfway through it. I still haven't finished it. I'm like 2 hours in because it's like 4 hours and like 45 minutes.
It's huge.
And it's so my favorite Joe Rogan podcast was the first time Alex Jones was on. He got high and drunk because it's amazing. And then this is probably my second favorite Joe Rogan podcast. I'm one of those people who absolutely loves Alex Jones, but not because I like think anything he says has any value.
Please elaborate on this, because people are going to hear that soundbite and they're going to get the idea that you. I know where you're coming from,
you
and
know
I
where I'm
will
coming
say
from. Like,
it again.
I
too.
disagree with like everything he says, but like I think he is entertaining as hell to watch on someone else's podcast. I've seen clips of him. I've never really sat down and watched
Same.
a full episode, but I have watched him on other people's shows, and he is legitimately just a crazy person. Like,
certifiably insane, right?
Yeah, and his whole voice, Alex Jones, that thing he does, and it just, and him in this podcast even where he's like, choke me out,
Oh
please,
God,
someone put me.
He's telling fucking like, Eddie Bravo to put him in a sleeper hold and take him out, and fucking they're just like, no, please no.
And he's like, I'm not afraid. And Joe Rogan's like, yeah, I know you're not afraid. That's why I'm telling you not to do it.
So no. I got two schools of thought on it, because, dude, I agree with what you're saying. And when you say, you know, you don't, I want to be fair, and I want to say that 96% of everything he says is completely baseless and out of fucking control. But then every once in a while, he does say things that, you know, it's like, I at least understand why you would be skeptical about that. I at least understand why you're willing to question those things. And I think it's positive for people to question the conventional wisdom and to go against societal norms for the sake of trying to find some deeper level of truth, because there's a lot of gaslighting going on. And I think that's the truth of the matter, is some of these conspiracies are not conspiracies. Some of these things are very fucking real. You look at the moon landing, and it's pretty obvious the moon landing happened, at least in my mind. I definitely believe in the moon landing. I also believe, and this is not just me, Joe Rogan even talked about it before, that a lot of those photos from the moon landing have been doctored or staged to prove it, because we weren't able to get good images of it in space. So, you know, just because the government has lied to us in one circumstance doesn't mean that they've lied to us in all circumstances, but I do think it gives us the right to question it.
Well, and I thought, shockingly, I agree. So I never understood why people even believed a word Alex Jones said. But this podcast actually made me realize it, because most of what he says is utter bullshit. But there are things that he throws in there that you're like, well, that's actually true. So he mixes up enough true things in there to where it kind of, and I don't think it's like intentional. I think that's how he thinks, you know, and he kind of covers this. Like, he knows this is fake, and well, he knows this is true and that this is a real conspiracy. So he kind of starts to believe more, and he makes actually a super valid point that I kind of agree with, which I never thought I would say. He says that there are the people who believe every conspiracy that they hear, and then there are the people who believe every single word that is on the news. And you don't want to be either one of those extremes.
Correct.
You know, and I feel like there is a middle ground where you should lie.
And that gets into the conspiracy theories in itself is such a vast and strange thing to try to tackle in this way. Maybe in the future we'll get into specific ones, but I just kind of generally speaking, the idea of people believing in conspiracy theories, I don't think that in itself is inherently bad, because what you said is like, to be all in and trust everything is equally as dangerous as to trust absolutely nothing. When I watched and listened to that podcast, a couple things stuck out to me, and that's that Alex Jones has no communication skills. He's really good at voicing his opinion and talking about what's on his mind, but he's horrible at listening to other people. He's horrible at railroading the conversation and completely dominating it to where Joe Rogan would ask him a specific question. He'd say, but Joe, the point is, and fucking get so animated and so amped up. So you know he's passionate about it, but and he does. He throws in things that what's his name that Jamie's literally able to fact check right there on the spot and find out that some of what he's saying is actually true. But I can't tell you what the takeaway, because he throws so many fucking things at you so fast that it's like, I don't even know. I couldn't tell you half of what he was even saying because it's such a stream of consciousness kind of thing. And I think that's detrimental to his actual cause.
I would agree, because even my wife was listening to it with me, and she's never even heard of Alex Jones. She has no idea who he is, and she was like, "This guy's crazy." I'm like, "Oh yeah, 100%."
Yeah.
She goes, "People believe him?" I'm like, "No, yeah, people do. There's a lot of people who believe him."
Yeah.
I'm like, "But he's crazy," and there's just this ongoing thing, and he even talks about people who are schizophrenic and suffer from psychosis, and how there's a marriage between those two type of people.
Yeah.
And I feel like he is a walking example of the type of person you think of when you think of someone who believes in like most conspiracy theories. This guy, there's obviously, I mean, I hate to throw this claim out there, but I think anyone who watches the video would come to the same conclusion that I came to, of that this guy is not 100% okay.
Yes.
He's
Yeah.
very passionate, but there's definitely things. And then he talks about his father and his upbringing, and it sounds like his dad was at least some sort of conspiracy, or maybe some of it was true. But even when he's telling the story about, where he starts telling the story about like being a kid and he had sex, but with the older girl who made him wear makeup, I literally was like, I don't even know if that's true. Like, I literally don't know if that story's true, because I don't think a person who is that detached, you can take anything at face value. And my wife's worked in mental health before, and she was even like, yeah, this guy has some issues.
Victoria was overwhelmed. Like, I think it made her stressed out
Mm-hmm.
to listen to it. And I think some people really respond to that kind of not necessarily fear-mongering, but that kind of passion, I think where me and you are very level about everything and not so emotionally invested. It seems like outrage is very marketable right now because there's a lot of people feeling disenfranchised, and I feel like Alex Jones has really spearheaded that. But I watched this movie called Three Identical Strangers over the weekend. I know that's kind of a Movies Are Terrible podcast, but I wanted to tie it into this because I can't say this without spoiling it. Are you all right with that?
Yeah, spoil it. It'll be a year before I watch it.
And for those of you guys that are listening at home, I mean, this is a true story. It's all well documented. I do wish that I wouldn't have known any of it going into the movie. Unfortunately, I did because I just read and shit. But there is a 19-year-old man who shows up, my 19-year-old kid who shows up to university for his first semester, first day. And there's all of these people approaching him. Hey, good to see you. Shaking his hand, patting his back. There's girls coming up and kissing him. He's like, I was never popular in high school. I have no idea what's going on, until he comes face to face with this dude that says, oh my God, you're a spitting image of my best friend. You've got a twin brother. The two of them jump in the fucking car immediately. They drive hundreds of miles away, and these two twin brothers that have never even known the other existed reunite. And then there's the third one that sees it all going down on TV. They're doing all these press junkets, and the dude's adopted mother says, oh my God, I'm watching TV and I am staring at two of you. Holy fuck, there's these three triplets that were all put up for adoption. None of them had any clue that the others existed. And it turns out back in 1964, there was a scientist. I don't have his name right here in front of me. It's not super important. However, his goal, his objective was to find biological twins, identical twins, and put them in different socioeconomic backgrounds and different environments, and to try to say how much of who we are is nature versus nurture, And is free will basically an illusion? Are we predestined by our own biology to end up the people that we were? And it's so fucking fascinating. It is so interesting. And it makes you think, if that's something that was being funded back in the 1960s, if they would do it there, then what makes us think that they're not experimenting on people?
I would agree with that, because that's a thing that, like, I think why Alex Jones is able to capture people is because of that right there. Like, there's things that once you think that's not think, but once you know that's true, it kind of makes you go, well, yeah, this other thing that sounds far-fetched and crazy and totally bonkers, well, that's not really any weirder than some of the stuff that we know is, you know, genetic testing, or, you know, experimenting on kids like triplets, pulling them apart. Like, that's pretty crazy to do, but it happened. It obviously happened.
And it's not
And
on the same level as like gene splicing and mixing humanoid alien hybrids like
and
fucking
sheep.
Alex Jones is talking about. Yeah, it's not exactly the same, but I remember being in 7th grade and seeing that image. It was a scientific breakthrough about being able to reproduce human body parts, and there was a mouse that had a human ear on the back of it. That was 20 years ago. So, and I'm not saying anything. I'm just saying, hypothetically, what makes us think that they don't have these tissue farms and that they are potentially doing experimentations like fucking Dr. Frankenstein, you know?
And that's the thing, is like, there is no, like, or even his claim, which I'm not putting this claim out there, but the claim where he's like, well, Planned Parenthood sells, you know, after, like,
So
late term
disturbing,
abortion
and if it's
parts.
true, that is horrifying. What'd he say?
Well,
Tell the folks real quick. Sorry.
so he talks about how, you know, Planned Parenthood, that there's essentially a late term abortion, like, fetus spare body part, like, black market ring. And he does talk about a video, which this part of this story is true. So this is again what he does. He does talk about the undercover videos at Planned Parenthood, where these people are like, oh, I make 6 figures a year because of late term abortions and this and this, and oh yeah, we'll keep them comfortable after we take them out, and they're, I've seen those videos.
Comfortable?
Those are actually terrifying when you watch them. Like, I've seen those and been like, well, that's weird, you know. But I don't know I don't think that means, I mean, but then again, I don't know, but I personally don't think that means that Planned Parenthood takes those things. I know that, I think that just means Planned Parenthood, despite what people say, the majority of their money comes from abortions. That's where most of their funding comes from. So
Well,
I
and
think
that's objectively true.
yeah, like, that's true. That's a
Yes,
fact. And they
yes.
could just be referencing that in the video, like, oh, I make
Correct.
6 figures a year from abortions, you know? Like,
So,
but that doesn't mean that they're selling bodies on the black market, you know? And but you hear stuff like the three strangers story, and and the rat with the ear on the back, and then you start to think, like you said, some of this was in the 60s. As sci-fi progressed, I mean, as science progressed into a sci-fi like realm, some of this stuff could realistically be going on. Like, it could. I'm not saying it is, but I understand how I have a very good friend who's super into conspiracy theories. He's a DJ who's actually been wanting to come on the show. He's a um, EDM DJ,
oh,
but
yeah.
he's like super into this stuff, and he's very into it. And I argue with him all the time because he comes up with the most crazy shit. Like, he believes Baron von Trump is a time traveler. You know, like,
wow.
crazy
I'd love to
shit.
talk with him about that shit. That
Yeah.
sounds really
So we
fascinating.
need to get him on and talk about conspiracy theories. But he, like, as much shit as I give him, and I fuck with him all the time because I think it's funny too. At the end of the day, do I kind of understand why he believes some of this stuff? Yeah, because he does the same thing. He's like, well, this was true. And I'm like, well, yeah, you're right, that was true. And he's like, isn't that crazy? And I'm like, well, you're right, that's crazy. You know, and he's like, so do you really think human animal hybrids are out of the question? And I'm like, well, I guess, you know, it could be.
Yeah, it's hard to. I mean, obviously, it's hard to say definitively. It's years afterwards that the documentation gets declassified, and even a lot of times, then they redact what they want to. So, even declassified documents aren't exactly transparent because a lot of times, for whatever reason they will redact large sections of it. Operation Northwoods is one of the most fascinating and damning pieces of historical evidence. It was a false flag instituted. Well, it didn't actually happen, but the CIA approached JFK and they said, hey, what do you think about us hijacking some planes and causing some sort of attack on American soil, specifically Florida, so that we can justify going and overthrowing Fidel Castro? And JFK said, nah, we're good on that. We're not going to do that. We're better than that, essentially. And he got assassinated shortly afterwards. Now, am I saying one has anything to do with the other? No, I'm not.
Could it though?
Yeah,
Could.
sure. And that's just it. It's like I'm not willing to definitively say one way or the other. But there are kernels of truth to this that it's worth at least questioning. So easy to draw the parallel. Again, I would never be so bold to say that 9/11 was an inside job or that it was faked, but it's very convenient the way that so many contractors had went in and basically did hypothetical bids on different areas within Iraq, and that we were able to turn this battle against Osama bin Laden to one that was conveniently against Iraq. And there were a lot of circumstances surrounding 9/11 that are around 9/11 that are still difficult to explain. Lots of stuff, and they actually touch on that a little bit on the Joe Rogan Experience. But I mean, it's hard to wrap my head around. What do you think about the Operation Northwood, and does that in itself show that we are capable of staging our own terrorist attacks?
I think it shows we're capable of it. And people have, I mean, presidents have been caught off mic, not realizing what they're saying and saying some pretty weird stuff. But all of that, is circumstantial. As someone who I honestly don't think 9/11 was an inside job, I'm not one of those people. I understand why some people could think that. The one thing I would like to see, and ironically, even though Alex Jones is now considered like a right winger, Alex Jones, I don't consider him right or left. I consider him just a conspiracy theory guy. And this is one thing I will give him credit for, is he was very critical of Bush, very critical of Obama. He's less critical of Trump, but he still has some things. But to me, what always blows my mind about conspiracy theories, not to true conspiracy theory people, but for a lot of people, they tend to believe the conspiracy theory when it's not quote unquote their guy in office, like
That's
then
fair.
they're like, oh yeah, that happened.
That's
I hate
fair.
Bush, so it was an inside job. And I'm like, I'm gonna say right now, if this shit is true, which some of it has come forward, it's definitely a both party issue.
Yes, 100%. And it's also interesting, Alex Jones kind of talking about breakaway governments like the CIA and NASA, and how they've all kind of become their own entities with their own agendas and things like that. And, a lot of times.
What did he say? He said NASA was the real government or whatever. Wasn't that what he was saying?
Yes. And, again, I don't know. There's as much of a logical explanation, I'm sure, for a lot of the stuff that happened in 9/11 as there are, discrepancies in some of the facts. So I don't know, man. I'm not going to say that I do or don't think that it was a conspiracy, because that would probably cause us some problems down the road.
Yeah.
But I don't know, man. It's interesting. It's real interesting. And then the only other thing I want to touch on, and then we'll move on, is that it's well known that in like the 1940s in Guatemala, that we did not like the democratically elected leader that came into office at the time, and we trained like 450 militia to go and fight for the dictator that ended up taking over Guatemala. A lot of it had to do with the fruit trade, specifically bananas, and the way that we were going to be able to profit off of those resources and pay less tax to bring them into the country. Don't quote me on all of that specifically. However, I do know that that's not the only intervention that we've had in South and Central America for our own political gain. So it is not above America to put capitalism as the more important currency than human lives.
Yeah, we definitely have been involved in like toppling governments. I think I don't even think that's a controversial thing to say, you know? Like that's something that we've done as well as other countries have done it, you know, when our own interest is a priority. But again, I don't know where truth and crazy, you know, where that line is sometimes.
I think it's right between us. Like that, you know, we've each got our own borders and there's that little tiny blue space.
Mm-hmm.
I'm crazy and I think
Like,
you're not. So that's the dividing line.
that's the line there's right between.
Yes. But it's interesting. And you know, and then even past that, at what point are things worth it for the greater good? Like, whatever the greater good is, I have no idea what that even means. But for example, if letting I can't remember the name of the journalist that was murdered in Saudi Arabia just a couple months back, if his death saves the economy millions of dollars in resources and allows us to have a good relationship with Saudi Arabia where we get a lot of our fossil fuels and have lots of dealings with, is what's more moral, to sacrifice the life of the few to save the many, to, you get what I'm saying? Like, is there a justification? Is there, if we're doing shady things that are hopefully ultimately going to bring about a positive change, is that still bad or evil, or is it necessary?
It's the old Watchmen like paradox with Osmandius, you know, like where it's
Absolutely.
like I'm a firm believer of anytime anyone says greater good, you run for the fucking hills. Nothing ever comes good out of this. You
Okay.
know? Yeah, I'm a firm believer of and you're hearing that now a lot in politics again, because it's a very communist, Marxist sort of ideology is greater good. You know, that's kind of the basis of the entire ideology. And you're starting to hear that a lot in American politics. And that anytime, I don't care if it's left or right, someone talks about greater good, I'm like, no, I'm an individualist. You know, that's at the end of the day how I ride out.
Interesting, and I don't disagree with that. You know, with everything, I have a hard time really committing to one side or the other, because I do believe that we are all an organism. You know, we all share this thing. We are all individuals that are part of this just gigantic collective, and we do try to separate it off into groups. Gays, straights, men, women, whites, blacks, whatever. We subcategorize ourselves, but we are all part of this gigantic living organism. The world, it's just going to keep on turning. And so, I mean, I think the greater good, in my mind, the only thing the greater good could ever be is just unity. You know, it's just putting aside all of those little tribalist things and understanding that we are all one people. And maybe it's a little idealistic, but that's anything short of that is not the greater good. It's control by a specific power structure.
I would agree with that 100%. And I feel like most people who use the term greater good really mean control of something.
Yes, I agree.
Yeah.
I agree. Good point. All right, let's go ahead and move on to your topic. I'm eager to talk about this one with you.
Yeah, this is weird. So apparently Black History Month is optional in Denver. That's what I take from this. So a school is under fire for Black History opt-out policy. And this is coming from my city. A Denver high school reversed a controversial policy on Thursday that allowed students to opt out of attending a Black History Month assembly. Officials at George Washington High School told ABC News parents no longer will be allowed to prevent their children from attending individual assemblies amid backlash over its decision to let students opt out of an upcoming Black History celebration in March.
Jesus.
Quote, effective immediately, we are eliminating the assembly opt-out policy, and all students will attend educational assemblies at GW, George Washington. Kristen Waters, the public school principal, said in a statement, quote, as we continue the important work of dismantling systemic racism, segregation, and inequality in education, and specifically at George Washington High School, we appreciate our community holding us accountable. So essentially, yeah, they got backlash because they said that they sent a thing home with parents saying we're having a Black History Month celebration, and a quote that students could opt out, and then they would be watched in, I believe, the library for the duration of the assembly, and just would go to their second period class. Uh, Naturally, people were pretty outraged about this, or like, um, because they don't think Black History celebration should be optional. Where are you falling on this? Because I'm kind of all over the place.
Yeah, of course. But we try to be logical and approach shit pragmatically. And, on one hand, education in itself is not optional. Well, I mean, I guess it is. But if you're in the school system, that's what you go for, education. That first and foremost, you should not be able to opt out of education. That said, if it were sex ed and you got one of those waivers, I know you remember them from school, and the parents would be allowed to say, like, I don't believe in this, I'm going to send my kid to the library, or, hey, we're going to watch Jaws for education purposes this week in art class. Do you want your kid to attend? Sign this waiver if you do. If you don't, we're going to put them off in the library. Those two things are quite a bit different, obviously, than, sex education is, I believe, very essential. I don't think people should be able to opt out of sex education either. I think these things are very important for actual life skills. Like, I know that people think their English class is going to be way more important, but like the sex education, the Black History Month, these things are essential to improving our understanding and increasing our understanding of the world around us when we leave school. So on one hand, maybe they shouldn't be able to force. It's tricky, man. It's tricky because they
You sound about where I am on the
it's
issue.
difficult. It's really difficult to wrap my head around. It's difficult. Because if a Black student, here we go, well, and I'm sorry, I just tried to articulate what I'm saying, is if a Black student's parents said, you know what I think Black history should be all year long. I think it's bullshit that 1 month out of 12 gets dedicated to learning about African American culture. Fuck this. I reject it. Should that person have the right to do that? Yeah, sure. But if it's a white person, should they have the right to do that? Well, am I setting a double standard by saying it's okay for one person and not another? So therein lies the conundrum for me.
That's kind of where I was at, because I kind of feel like sometimes Black History Month is one of those things where it's kind of a damned if you do, damned if you don't sort of situation sometimes, sure. Where Black history is American history. It's a big part of American history.
I agree.
To me, there's in my opinion, there really is no separation. But that being said, I also understand that there is an important reason to shine a light on it, so that it doesn't kind of get just pushed to the side and be like, no, these stories from a minority group are important and they've directly, affected our lives for the best. So I understand that. And you brought up a good example. Like if a Black person was like, no, I don't want to go because I think Black history is American history, that's why I'm opting out. I don't think that's a bad reason to opt out. That being said, if a white person uses the same exact justification, I actually don't think that's a bad reason to opt out. My thing is, I think there are things that you should be able to opt out of. I agree, sex education. Some people feel it's not the school's place to tell it. And it's the parents' place to teach it. I'm fine with that. That's how you should, if you want to raise your kid. I know when I have kids, believe me, I will have uncomfortable conversations. I don't need a school to tell it for me, but
Does that mean
I have no
you
problem.
Won't allow the school to tell it for you?
They can do it.
In addition to?
No, in addition to.
Okay.
But that being said, if they took sex ed out, it wouldn't really bother me because I plan on being a responsible parent who's going to have these tough conversations anyway. I don't think it's not the government's job to raise my child. But if a person was like, no, I want to opt out of that for religious reasons, fine. That's absolutely fine. If someone said they wanted to opt out of even though I wouldn't have my kid opt out of this, let's say there was a gay celebration and someone was like, well, for my religious reason, I want to opt out. Fine. I think you're allowed to use your religious thing because of separation of church and state as an opt out policy. I just can't, for the life of me, wrap my brain around anyone wanting to opt out of Black History Month. Like, I don't understand the motivation there. Like, it just doesn't make sense to me. That I don't think there's anything controversial about Black History Month unless I'm completely missing something.
If I were in a like in my world, in the most ideal scenario I can think of, and all things were equal, Black history would be integrated into just general studies. If you're talking about the Underground Railroad and Harriet Tubman and its relationship with what was going on at the time, that can be a conversation that takes place anytime throughout the year. We shouldn't omit Harriet Tubman from that historical timeline just so that we can showcase her during Black History Month. I don't think that's what's happening, but my point is that we should be able to integrate this. It is all of our collective history. That said, there is a lack of understanding and a lack of perspective sometimes about that. And what I think is interesting, and you can speak to this more than I can, I would imagine that Denver schools, and this one in particular, is probably predominantly white, probably taught predominantly by Caucasian teachers. So it's probably not the, I don't want to say it's not the best people to be learning it from, but it in itself illustrates a problem with the way that the education system is set up as it is.
So one of the first things I noticed when I moved to Colorado was, fuck, there are a lot of white people out here.
Sure.
Yeah, like that was like, it was almost alarming. Like it kind of took me back how I'm like, oh, like this is like, that's majority what it is. Like my wife's one of 2 Black people in our entire neighborhood.
Wow.
We were not used to that. That's not like, maybe this shows my own ignorance, but where I'm from, like there's not a ton of Black people, but there's a ton of Mexican, there's a ton of everybody, and everyone's very integrated back home. So moving here showed my own ignorance because I would hear these stories of like being underrepresented and I'd be like, God, what are you guys talking about? That's ridiculous. And then I moved to a city that's predominantly white and I'm like, oh, I get it. So I actually think in places, I'm with you. I think American history is American history, whether you're Black, whether we cover the Chinese people building the railroads, whether we cover Hispanic, like it's all American history. And in fact, that's what makes us as wonderful as we are, is the melting pot. I'm a firm believer of that.
Yes.
And I think we should celebrate that. So if you're in a place that there are more Black people and it's talked about more, I actually think Black History Month is kind of unnecessary, to be honest. But in places like Colorado, where people are not exposed to Black people, to be frankly honest, out here very often, I think it's probably good because I know a lot of people out here who like have an idea of Black people, instead of actually knowing any, which is bizarre to me, but that's kind of how it is out here. And you're seeing that change as the city's growing and the influx of people. I think 10 years from now, don't think that's going to be an issue. But I know a lot of people who, like for here, we're even kind of segregated. There's a quote unquote like Black part of the city,
Right.
And
right.
I'm not used to that. Like I live in the quote white area, and it's, so I think places like here, actually, I think having Black History Month is kind of important still. I think it's very much, America is not a one size fits all, where the United States and places vary heavily from state to state. I think maybe if you're in Atlanta, Black History Month may not be as important because it's kind of probably already brought up.
Yeah.
There's a higher Black population.
I hear
Places like here, I think it is. And I just think it's weird of all the places, which I've bitched about Colorado numerous times being kind of a little racist. Not like lower level racism. They're like not running around calling anyone the N word with a hard R at the end. But there's this like stigma of like Black people are down here that destroys me, especially seeing my wife out here, a Black woman.
So,
And
no,
but
please go
I just
ahead.
think I think here it's, as someone who's from here, it's extra cringy knowing it's a Denver school.
So I was reading an article from The Root. First, I was reading from ABC, and it was just very straightforward to the facts of what happened, which is what we had indicated at the beginning. There's an 82-page report that was commissioned by the Denver public school system and numerous other studies. Among them, the reports found black boys were much more likely to be suspended than white boys. Although 13% of Denver public school students are black, African American students made up 28% of the suspensions in 2018. Study participants acknowledge that many of the young white female workforce are afraid of African American males, and because of this, some teachers just kick black students out of the classrooms, explained one teacher. One day I counted 6 African American males just hanging out in the hallway because they were kicked out of class. Black teachers in this school system have a difficult time getting promotions and feel isolated and unaccepted. In 2018, 16% of black students graduated on time compared to 78% of white students. Black students are given fewer resources than Hispanic students. Last year, 17% of black students in grades 1 through 8 scored at or above their grade level. 65% of students were proficient in math. Just 10% of the students in high school level academic programs were black. Now, you and I have talked a little bit about the actual breakdown of statistically how many whites versus how many blacks versus how many women, men, Asians. And so a lot of these numbers, that's not necessarily taken into account. Obviously, there are socioeconomic elements at play. There is systematic racism at play. All things are not equal from the start. And that's the world that I want to live in. I think that's the world that Caleb, I can't speak to you personally, but I think we want to both live in a world where all things are equal. Unfortunately, there is a little bit of overcorrecting that has to be done now just to get us where we need to be as society. And I think that's why a lot of people push back against this idea of forced inclusion and forced diversity. But it's like, yo, we don't all have the same opportunities going into it. So yeah, you might have to sometimes, if there is a black person that's scored 100 points and a white person that scored 100 points, sometimes we might need to give it to that black person just to try to level the playing field, just to try to give more opportunity, for better or worse. Maybe sometime in the future, everybody can just be where they're at according to their own merit and according to their, their own contributions. But I don't think that we're quite there yet. But I bring up all of that just to say that it does seem like systematic racism is something that is still very real. And when adult white women are intimidated or threatened by their black high school students, there is going to be more just not wanting to deal with it and just kind of putting them out and saying you can't be in the classroom or whatever. So it is a very nuanced and complex thing. Some of the race stuff I can only ever speak to as an outsider. I don't know that experience. That is not my experience growing up. And maybe I do come from a place of privilege when I say let the best man win all of the time and never do anything according to a person's race or gender, and why maybe it did slightly get under my skin about what Brie Larson said, because I felt like she was singling out white dudes in particular, which has become okay lately. And again, all things aren't equal. I did want to clarify for any of you guys that listened to the last podcast and are listening to this again, I wanted to say that I think that Brie Larson said the right thing in the wrong way. I have 100% respect for the fact that she uses her platform to speak about what she believes in. I also think that I am mature enough to be able to go into that movie and enjoy it on its own terms without having to worry about what these fucking celebrities think in their personal life. She slightly misspoke, and it was taken out of context. And it did create this narrative that she was anti-anything when she was just kind of white knighting and just kind of came off sounding a little bit privileged, if you ask me. But at the
She
same
just came
time,
off douchey. That was it.
yeah.
By misspeaking. Like that's it.
But I agree with what she was saying. I just don't feel like you have to single out one group of people to build up another. But I wanted to clarify that because I do feel like I might have perpetuated this idea that she was saying that she doesn't give a fuck about white people, but it was specifically about A Wrinkle in Time. But anyways, bringing it back around to the conversation, what do you think about, I mean, what do you think about where we're at now, and how do you think Black History Month is enough? Do you think that we need to try to find a way past this, or is it something that's still necessary for now?
There's actually a lot to unpack with the train of thought you just had.
Yeah. Sorry.
So no, I think there is a so I'm a huge believer in opportunity, equality of opportunity, but not necessarily equality of outcome. So what I mean by that is I think everyone should be given the same opportunities, but I don't necessarily mean that everyone should have the same outcome. So I think like the fact that Asian people have to score so much higher on their SATs to get into the same school is kind of racist.
Yeah.
Like, let's call it what it is. It's racism. It's bullshit. They have to score higher than like anyone. Now, I also believe that like with these figures that you stated, that correlation is not causation. So I don't know the reason behind, but I'm playing devil's advocate a little bit. So you look at things like the biggest thing that we can find causation for, and that you find it pretty much is identical across all races, is single motherhood. When kids are raised by a single mother, they're way more likely to go to prison. They're way more likely to be aggressive. Like this is statistically proven time and time again. I think the single motherhood and these figures pulling on mass, but they're approximately right. I think in white communities, single motherhood is like 40%. In Black, it's closer to 70%. So there is a correlation that we can track. But when you look at kids of single mothers, their conviction rates are almost the same. Their graduation rates are almost the same. So are these kids being kicked out of class simply because they're Black males? Or are they being kicked out of class because, statistically speaking, they would be more likely to be from a single mother home, which then would make them, statistically speaking, higher chances of being more disruptive?
Valid.
I don't know. Like that's the best way for me to look at it is I don't know. That being said, as someone who's from here, lives here now, I do see this like stigma around Black people. And my problem is, okay, the statistics that I just cited, there's no problem with going, hey, what I just did, hey, is this the cause? What's the cause here? The problem is when you look at those same statistics and you go, well, young Black male, more likely to be from a single home motherhood. So that Black kid right there might be a gangster. That's racist. Like that's an actual racist train of thought.
Right.
To be like, I'm going to judge that person off of the collective. This is again, greater good, collective, identitarian way of thinking that I don't like, that I think is very counterproductive. Is if I use that train of logic to go, well, that person, they're a gangster. That terrifies me because I'm going to have a kid who's going to be half Black, but in our culture, half Black is seen as Black. And if I have a boy or a girl, but a boy, and they're going to these Denver schools, I don't want my kid to be judged for his group, his identity. I want my kid to be judged for him. And I'm literally, statistically speaking, I have nothing to worry about. My kid's coming from a 2-parent home, we're middle class. Like my kid is going to have a better, not that my parents were bad, but like my parents are great. They're still together, but I'm going to have a socioeconomic, my kid's going to have a better go at it than I did as a white guy, so and that kind of gets into the thing that we're talking about where it's like that right there. Then, so should my kid get a ladder up over a poor white kid from a trailer park from a single mother? even though my kid already is starting off in a much better place, but his race isn't the same? I don't know. I don't know the answer, to be completely honest. It's a complex issue, and I feel like everyone acts like they have an answer, but it isn't. It's a very complex issue.
Yeah, couldn't agree more. I think that was an eloquent way to go out. You're good at getting the last word in, man. I think you put a button on that really well.
See, that's the goal. Every podcast is the last word.
So maybe whatever you do, just try to get out of the joint. That's what's important to me. Next time
that's my
I
next
see
goal.
you, I don't want to see you in your cell anymore.
I gotta cut this out pretty soon because I gotta go, stab a guy for some cigarettes.
Shank somebody in the yard. No, but seriously, thanks for talking to me, man. I think that was really good insight. I think this has been a good show. You feel good about it?
I feel good about it. I feel good about every show, even the bad ones, but this isn't a bad one.
No, and it's been a while, so it's good to talk to you again, and we'll be back. We'll be back, guys, on Wednesday. Hopefully, we'll be doing a episode of Movies Are Terrible, but stay tuned, same time, same place every week for People Are Terrible. We've got it up on SoundCloud. Make sure that you are subscribed to all of our different social media. That way, you can keep up to date with what's going on. Click that little bell to enable notifications while you're here. Most importantly, share. Share. We want to help get the word out. We want to bring more people in to this conversation. If you guys have any thoughts on anything that we've discussed, go ahead and leave them down in the comment section. Always love to hear your take, and we always take the time to engage, so make sure to do that. Caleb, where can they go check out the last podcast that you did?
The last podcast, which one are we talking about? The Movie Is Terrible, People Are Terrible?
We'll post it in the description, but your collaboration with the guy last time.
Oh, yeah, that's going to be over at Adam Daly. It's I'm going to I'll pull up the exact right now while I have it up. Yeah, and he's a super cool dude. Definitely go follow him on Twitter, and I'll plug his Twitter real quick too. His Twitter handle is at Adam Sideways, and his YouTube is I want to see his official name. I want to make sure I get this right. His official YouTube is Adam Daly, DALY Live.
So yeah, you guys head over and check that out. Most definitely support independent content creators and small YouTubers. It means a lot. And on behalf of both me and Caleb, and until next time, be terrible. All right, brother. Vicky's got breakfast, and I'll talk to you soon. That was a good conversation.
Yeah, man, it was good. It was nice to get back to it. I'm going to go see How to Train Your Dragon.
Get it, boy, and I'll talk to you soon.
All right.
Bye.
Later, man.